Welcome to the What's Lacking podcast. It's your host, Larry Atuncia. With me today is Chris. Care to introduce yourself, Chris?
Yeah, man. It's Chris Del Valle, Del Val for people who can't pronounce it. So, we've been friends for a while. I know we spoke, from time to time about teaching and education and stuff like that, and just getting to know each other, and especially with our wives being friends for a while.
Shout out to Crystal, who takes care of Marilyn.
yeah, and the rest of the kids.
Yeah,
and and just having that, getting to know each other, especially with this last year. With Marilyn, with Crystal watching Marilyn, and it's funny because even when we first started talking about the whole teaching thing, you kind of like opened my eyes to certain things that I wouldn't look at or look for when you were like, hey, if a job comes up and it's in the middle of the year, you got to wonder why it's which I would honestly that makes common sense, but it wouldn't come to my head. I was just like, oh, they just need a teacher,
right?
And then you're thinking like, wait, it's November, why do they need a teacher in November? Like, all right, also thinking about the school and what type of schools. Also, when you gave me the dynamic of the public school, private school, and charter school, I didn't know the difference. I just thought one's harder to get to than the other. So that was interesting.
Do you want to tell us what you do for a living? What do you do for work?
Yeah, well, my full-time job is I work for a company that services every company you can think of, whether it be uniforms, facilities, safety stuff, or whatever. And it's like a three job in one type thing, where I'm the delivery guy, the maintenance guy, and the manager of that account. So I do all three. So it's not just a delivery driver. Like, I show up, I drop it off, and I'm out. I got to make sure the account is right. I got to make sure that the product's right. I got to maybe do some upselling and even some downselling, which you would think, like, why would you downsell an account? Like, you're losing. Like, not really.
What's the definition of downselling?
So downselling is you have too much.
Okay.
You need to take some out because it's not benefiting you. And because it's not benefiting you, you're not going to want to stick around, because you're going to look at this like, man, I'm paying all this money for nothing.
Right.
So what you want to do is you want to downsell it. So it's like, all right, you know what? You have 10 things on here. You actually only need 4.
Right.
So I'm going to take these 6 off of you. So the 4 things that you do need, you will actually get more of the 4 things that you do need than more of the other 6 things that you don't.
Right. You downsell to keep the account long term, as opposed to them feeling like they're being taken advantage of and just quitting.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So long term play.
Right. So it's downsell, and then it's you're not just adding things on for the sake of adding it on.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like what I do, and then on the side I'm doing a after school program at Tacony Charter.
Okay.
It's more like a boxing fitness thing.
Nice.
Doing that. Before that I was doing some stuff with the Kensington football team. We're helping them out with coaching and strength and conditioning. So, just been doing that lately.
Yeah. Kensington's a neighborhood in Philly. Are you married with kids? Obviously you are. Tell me a little bit more about your marriage, your wife, your kids, family life.
Yeah. Me and Crystal turned 10 years next October.
Okay.
So
early congratulations.
Thank you.
On your decade.
Right. 10 years. So we have 3 kids together. I have an older son, Jaden, that I have from a previous relationship. He's 16. He'll be a senior next year.
Oh, yeah.
Senior.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
is he thinking of college, or what is he thinking of in terms of post high school life?
Actually, that's funny, because I actually spoke to him last night about that.
Okay.
I was like, hey, have you thought about what's going on after high school? And he's like, oh, he goes to school in Delaware. Okay. So he's like, well, as of right now, his plan is to try to get into the University of Delaware.
Yeah.
He knows a lot of people there. He's comfortable with that university. He's visited already a couple times.
It's a good school.
Yeah, yeah. And so he's like, yeah, that's my plan. He's like, also, but I'm still trying to get into sports. You know, he's into wrestling, he's into basketball. So he's like, you know, if somebody, you know, likes me and wants to give me a chance somewhere, you know, I'll take that opportunity. He's really into biology and animal science. He's always been that way. So wherever he goes has to have that available, because I know that that's what he would like to do, which I believe Delaware has it.
Yeah.
So he's very into that. So
that's great that he has a passion and like a strong interest, because that's gonna, you know, sort of streamline where he's able to, you know, put his efforts and energy into when he gets into school, as opposed to trying to figure it out in 4 years and you're like, I still don't know. Yeah.
Right. Which that's actually was my concern, because he had it so early. You know, and I'm like, oh, I don't want this to die out. You know, like I really don't want this to, like, because he was so good at it. Like he was the type of kid that in elementary school, the elementary books were too boring to him. You know, I would have to get him like an actual encyclopedia on whales and all this other stuff, and he would have the whole book.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Like memorized. My brother, I remember one time he was watching them, and they were watching Natural Geographic. And my son was like if he was watching a movie, would tell you what was happening before the person said it. And he was like, dude, he's like, yo, the entire episode, he knew exactly what the guy was going to say. He knew what he was saying. He explained certain definitions to me that I didn't know. And at the time, he was in grade school.
Right, that's amazing.
So
he's like the next David Attenborough.
Yeah, and and even when I show him stuff with the not the crocodile hunter, but his son. I forgot his son's name.
Yeah,
but his son had like a show.
Yeah, Irwin, something.
Yeah, some Irwin, and he would have a show, and he was all about. He's like, yeah, he's like, that's what I like that stuff, and he was like, and he's doing something. He's telling me why he's doing it.
Yeah,
he's like, yeah, he's in this position because you don't want to be in that position, and I tell you right now, if I'm lost in the woods, I need him with me.
That's that's really great. I think I met him briefly at Penelope's birthday party. Yeah, you know, I would love to sit down and chat with him, pick his brain on biology and animals.
Yeah, going.
So, do you want to tell me a little bit about your childhood and your relationship with your mother and your father growing up?
Yeah. You know, growing up, we grew up in the middle of North Philly. Well, I won't say the middle. It was. It actually got dubbed the name Badlands at one point. Yeah. I grew up around 3rd in Ontario, and it was rough, man, and it was weird because it was rough neighborhood, but my childhood I wouldn't consider, like we had, like even talking to my old friends, like we had some of the best times, even though we lived in some of the worst conditions.
Right.
You know, seeing my dad and then when I tell my people what my dad did as a teen, like my dad was actually a former Olympic weightlifter.
Okay, wow.
You know, and they're probably, oh, I get it, because you know how I train, and
so he was training you as a young child.
He worked so much he didn't actually get a chance to train me, but he would tell me.
Okay, yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? He would describe certain things to me, and I always paid attention to everything he said, so I remembered everything. So when I would go and I would try it, and I would tell him what I would do, and he would like correct me, and I would go back, and so it was interesting on how it actually shaped the way I learn things.
Okay.
Because I don't always have to be shown like hands what to do. Like a lot of times if you just tell me, I can figure it out. But he was actually his father actually left when he was a teenager, and he was actually training for the Olympics.
Oh.
He was in the middle of training for the Olympics. He was actually supposed to be heading out to get a sponsor.
Okay.
You know, to be able to go to the Olympics, and his father up and you know left the family. He was the oldest, I think oldest 6 or 7, and with that being said, in the 70s, you know, he's like, you know, he took on that mantle of the man in the house immediately. Gave up the opportunity to go to Olympics to work and take care of the family. And that story, because I'm the oldest, that story kind of shaped like my value system.
Okay.
Like I always took on, like I always wanted him to show or want to show him that I can be the man of the house too.
Right.
Like if you need me, I can be the man of the house. And same thing with my mom. My mom was the oldest in her family. She was the oldest girl, but she had 3 brothers, and had 3 uncles. And same thing. Her father also left at a young age, so she was the kind of like the mother of the house.
Right.
So with me seeing how they grew up and kind of like the value system that we grew up with, like we got to stick together.
Mm-hmm.
Like we really need each other. That I took on immediately. I even when I was able to work, I worked, but not with the sense of I can get the latest thing, I can get the video game, I can get this, I can get that. I worked with the mentality that if I don't work, we don't eat. So that really shaped my value system and my work ethic.
Yeah.
Because I was never was I always working for myself.
Okay.
I was always working for somebody else. I actually don't know what that feels like to work for myself.
Okay.
And to just do things because I need it or just because I want it. I always do things because we need it or we want it.
Yeah, you it sounds like you were very mature from very early on, and then you sort of identified with the idea of being, the provider and protector of
Right.
of a family. So, but it sounds like in your childhood growing up, it was a happy home, and your parents instilled in you the idea that family comes first.
Yeah. Now, there were. It was wild because we had some turbulent times. Of course, being, in a impoverished neighborhood, not really having much. Really struggling a lot. Not always having. We always had food to eat, even though it felt like we were running. There were times I joke about. I would tell Crystal back in the day. Under the L in Kensington, that's where all the shops used to be.
Yeah.
It was nothing like how it is now. And I remember that every time we would go there, I knew my dad had money. I knew my dad either worked overtime or we got income tax money or something because we went to the good shops.
Right.
I got the good sneakers. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I can identify when we had money.
Yeah.
Even when we shopped for food, I can tell, by the number of bags that we came home with. I was like, okay, Dad's doing good.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So, but just seeing, and like I said, with my work ethic, I always seen my dad, no matter what, whether in downtime or uptime, my dad's work ethic never changed.
Right.
I never seen him complain. I've seen him stand up for people. I've seen him stand up for himself, which is different. If there's unjust things or not, things that aren't fair, you speak up. But if the job is hard, the job is hard. So that's another thing that kind of shaped my work ethic.
I like that comment about no complaints. I think that's something that is important for people to develop. Resiliency and discipline and work and hard work ethic. Not that you don't see the injustices that may come upon you, but rather being able to adapt and have strategies to deal with them.
Right.
I like the idea of resiliency and no complaining and just doing what you need to do to be able to provide and to have a good home. What was your schooling like? Your experience in the educational system?
This is so I actually was able to go to a Catholic school coming up. It was called St. Hugh's. It was again North Philly, and so I was able to go there because my parents, even though we didn't have much, they did not want me to go through the public school system.
Yes,
they did not want that for me, and they were like, especially because I the potential I had and things like when I told you I liked the Miami Hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
I've always liked the Miami Hurricanes. Football was such a big part of me since I could walk, since I could know, I knew what football was. And at the time in the 80s and early 90s, Miami University was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm talking about kindergarten, first grade. I knew I wanted to go to Miami University.
Right.
So my parents seeing that I'm at that age, you're talking about college at that age, like, all right, we're gonna have to find a way to put him in, a better school.
Yeah.
So they made it happen where I was able to go to a Catholic school. From there, I went to, because even then, I knew what high school I wanted to go to, in first second grade, which was at the time was Archbishop Ryan.
Yeah.
Archbishop Ryan at the time had the top high school football team.
Yeah.
So I was like, if I can get to the top high school football team and the top college football team, like I could have a pretty good shot here.
So, how old were you when you were having these thoughts?
Oh, I'm not lying when I say I was like at least first, second grade.
Yeah. So, where did you get that knowledge and information? How were you able to put those things together?
When I was,
that's pretty sophisticated for a second.
From all I remember
grader.
is being able to watch football with my dad, and he would tell me, he was like, yeah, if you really want this, you got to put your time in at school. You gotta work hard, because these guys, like, they're no joke, man. Like, they're no joke. So I was like, all right, that's what I got to do. That's what I got to do. And I'm telling you, I remember, how in first grade they let you do like a painting or like a arts and crafts. I distinctly remember taking a orange and a green paint, and I would do the U, like half a U, and they're like, oh, what's that? What is that, a U? I was like, no, it's Miami University. I remember teacher like Miami, like the college, and I was like, yeah, and like I was so into it, so that's really where, and I was always into it, like,
What was their mascot? Because we're the same age, and I remember just really liking their mascot. It was like a pelican, or what type of bird was it? It was a big bird. Remember?
Yeah. I would say because it's not a duck, because that's Oregon.
Yeah.
Even though they look the same.
Right.
Yeah, it is like a I can't really describe. It's like a pelican or.
I remember thinking that was real cool, like the mascot for Miami Hurricanes.
Right.
But sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, and and then so I'm thinking, I'm like, in my mind, even early then, I don't even know where it came from. Where I'm thinking, I'm like, all right, if I need to get to the best, I need to be surrounded by the best. I need to be doing the best. So, like, I seeing that I was in a Catholic school, so I'm like, at the time, that was it. Like, we really didn't have, that was like our version of private schools. Like, there was nothing else, either Catholic or private. Catholic or public. There was no charter schools then. Right. So, going out, and I'm like, all right, well, if I keep up my grades, and at the time Archbishop Ryan was the best, if I can get there, I'm good. I'm good to go. So, which actually I was able to get to Archbishop Ryan my freshman year, but as you know, it's not cheap, and it was super expensive. And parents, excuse me, my parents just couldn't afford it, so I ended up having to transfer out, which was hard on me because I made the team.
Yeah,
as a freshman. Yeah. So I'm thinking I'm on my way. I graduated out of St. Hughes with good grades. I got into Archbishop Ryan. I'm making good grades. I made the team. Coach is already pulling me to the side, and he's like, hey, I think we can make you into a really good cornerback. I think you have all the skills that we need. And I'm training, and I'm doing all this other stuff, and then not being able to go back. It was hard, man. Like, my sophomore year, and I'm always thinking I'm going back. My sophomore year, I had to go to, which was weird because I had to go to Mastbaum because they said that was my neighborhood school, even though I live right next to Edison.
Okay.
Like, I didn't understand that at all. But, so I went to Mastbaum, and I didn't even try for the team. Because in my mind, I'm not staying here. Like,
right, okay.
I'm thinking I'm going back to...
And do you think there was a level of depression as well?
Oh, yeah.
And so...
Ah, man, when
especially
I tell you,
at that age,
yeah,
right?
When I tell you, I hated every second of being it. Yeah. Like, I did, and then, I remember this too. Because, like I said, I went to Archbishop Ryan, and I put my time in. I had good grades there. This is how you could tell what was the difference between Catholic school or private school and the public school. I get there, they see my transcripts, and they're like, by your age and your grade, we have to put you in these things and these classes.
Yeah.
Even though we know what
Right.
they're. So I remember there was. I lie to you not, dude. I missed half the school year because I did not want to go.
Right.
And I still had honors. I remember having all A's and B's.
Yeah.
And I wasn't present for half the school year.
Yeah. I've heard that from other people who've gone to private school and then have transitioned to public schools, is that it's so much easier, and like the effort that they have to put forward is 25% of what they had to do, and if that, exactly.
Right. So, going through that, I was able, and then what happened was when I realized that man, I'm really not going back.
Okay.
Like I'm not going back to Ryan. My sophomore year was up, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, all right, well, I guess I got to make the best of this opportunity. So all the football players at Massbomb knew who I was, and they were like, "Yo, just come out and try out. You'll make do good." So I went out, I tried out, and this junior year hasn't officially started because tryouts start in August.
Okay.
So I'm going and I'm trying out, and I'm doing my best, and I got the best times and everything, but I'm going up against other like freshmen, juniors, and freshmen, sophomores, and a couple juniors,
Right.
and I'm destroying them. I'm doing everything better than everybody, and I'm thinking, all right, well, this ain't bad. Like I can, I got friends on the team that I grew up with. This ain't, and I started to really like try to make it good.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, this is it. And then I get the news from the coach. Coach wanted to see me. So I'm like, and he's like, all right, yeah, you know what? We have a spot on the team for you. You're going to be this, He's like, yeah, I'm going to have to cut you. And I looked at him like, I was so confused. I was like, why? He's like, well, one, you're a junior. We don't really have a spot on the team for you.
Okay.
You're too old to play on the varsity team. And yes, you are good. You're better. You're supposed to be better than the junior varsity team
Right.
players. But, you weren't in the weight room like that during the off season.
Yeah.
Which, mind you, I didn't go because I didn't think I was going to come back.
Right, exactly.
So, and I was so confused. And I remember asking him, I was like, yeah, but, like, if you give me a shot, I'll make it. And that was my thing. That's where I think this point in my life where that started was like, if you give me a shot, I'll make it. And I was like, if you give me a shot, I'll make it. And he's like, I can't. I don't want you to waste your time, and I don't want you to waste my time.
Right. Do you think that the team through the grapevine had heard that you had made the Ryan team, right? Because it's Philly, and like the football community probably they talk amongst each other, and then knowing that you had left the Ryan team, you had made it, you come to this school, they're probably expecting you your sophomore year to try out and to want to be part of the team, and seeing that you didn't, maybe they had thought or heard or just thought that maybe you thought you were too good for the team.
No, actually, it kind of helped me with the players. The coach didn't pay no mind to that.
Okay.
But the players did because they knew me.
Okay.
And I remember even a couple of the players kind of tried to stand up for me, like, Coach, no, like this guy's really good.
Right.
Like you should let him on the team. He's like, no, he should. And I feel like that happened for a reason. That really did happen for a reason, because I don't think I guess my purpose was to actually be there. So I was devastated. And mind you, I'm already battling depression.
Exactly.
And I'm starting to come out of it because I'm like, you know what? Let me make this a good thing.
Right.
And then I'm getting cut because he says I'm too small, and he says this and he says that. And I'm like, man, I didn't even get the opportunity. So my dad, seeing how bad I wanted it, started to call around. Right. Well, at first he just told me, why don't you go to Washington, see if we can get you into George Washington, which was the best public league school as far as football was concerned. And I started thinking, and plus they were our rivals at Ryan. Like it was always a Thanksgiving Day game.
Okay.
Huge Thanksgiving Day game where it was Ryan versus Washington. So that's how he knew about Washington. But I'm thinking, I just got cut from this one team for being too small. Washington is bigger than they are.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I told her, I remember telling him, because that's how discouraged I was. I was like, there's no way they're going to give me a shot.
Right.
And I can't hear no again. So I was like, I can't go there. I was like, maybe we could find somebody else. My dad literally went through the alphabet of the schools from A to, A back to W.
Yeah.
And he called everybody. He's like, hey, if I get my son into your school, would you give him a shot? No. I'm talking even the teams that haven't won a game in decades. They're saying no. And it got back to Washington. And he called Washington's coach. And the Washington's coach said, if you can get him in, we'll give him a shot.
Okay.
And I was like, he said that? He's like, yeah. He said, if I can get you in there, he'll give you a shot. And I was like I was stunned. I was stunned. I was like, all right, but it really lifted me up because,
right, of course,
even if I was just all I needed. That's all I ever needed was a shot. So he got me in, and I got in there. I got at Washington. I started in there, and I gave it my all, man. I was going so hard that I remember my defensive coordinator, Coach Singletary, who's actually in the Hall of Fame at Temple, he nicknamed me Fearless, because if you looked at me my junior year. Yeah. I didn't care what I looked like. I wore baggy. I didn't really care what I looked like. I wore rec specs because my vision was bad. Yeah. So I looked like I didn't know what I was doing. But you put me on the field, yeah. Right? Put me on the field. I was all over the place. I was taking whatever you needed from me. That's what I did, and he loved it. And then the very next year, I made the starting team. I made starting corner. Wow. Very next year, and
this story is riveting, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah, so I was able to make the team, and that year we actually had one of the top teams in the state. So I went from in 1 year being cut for being too small, and thinking like this is it, to the very next year being the starting corner on one of the top teams in the state.
Right, but not to tell you about your own life and your story, but you had already made the team at Ryan too. But maybe I don't. What do you attribute the fact that didn't give you that confidence in your other endeavors? Just youth and being a teenager.
Yeah,
because Ryan is famous. We both live in Philly.
Ryan, especially then in the 90s.
Exactly,
Right.
In all sports, right?
Right.
So for you to make the team then showed you the level of talent that you had.
Right, and then it started, but I would guess my sophomore year and what happened at Mass made me question it.
Right. Okay.
Like, man, is this even for me? Is this? But then when I'm able to get in and got the opportunity, it sparked it again. Mm-hmm. And then making the team and doing all this. Now at the end of the season, we end up playing Mass Bomb in the playoffs.
Oh.
We end up playing Mass Bomb in the playoffs.
Revenge game.
Right. Which this I still to this day, this was one of the biggest life lessons I have. I don't care how old I am, I'm never going to forget it. That whole week, all that was on my mind was revenge, which wasn't my normal way of playing.
Okay.
It was not my normal way of playing. Remember, I was always a team player. What did you need from me? What do you need from me? Where do you put me? What do you But that week was all about me.
Yeah.
I needed to make an example. I needed to let Mass Bomb know that they made a mistake. Mm-hmm. And I let you know, I had one of the worst games I ever had.
Yeah.
One of the worst games. And then the first hat, and of course, and I'll never forget his name. His name was Eric Plant. Guy was like one of the best receivers in the public league that year. And he was on my side. And again, I was thinking, man, I'm doing good all year. If I could shut him down, that'll show that coach. He destroyed me the first half, and I was over pursuing. I wasn't focused, and even while it was happening, I was like, how am I missing these tackles? How am I not supposed? Where am I? I didn't get it. I'm doing everything. I'm thinking I'm doing everything right. It wasn't until halftime when my coach was yelling at me and he was telling me what was going on. He's like, you're making this about you. You're making this about you. You want to get back at Mass Bomb so bad. You're not playing like how you play. And I think right before the half, I made this would have turned the game around where I had to intercept. I read it perfect. I read his route perfect. And I had the interception. It would have been a pick six because there was nobody around.
Right.
Went right through my hands. And I told you, my heart dropped. And I was like, Like I never like how did I do that? Like how did it go through my hands? I did everything right.
Any other game,
Any other game would have been
easy.
pick
Yeah,
six.
exactly.
And I sat there and he's like, and he got on me bad. Now I made up for it, but we end up actually losing that game. It was one of the biggest upsets in public league history. Mind you, we were supposed to be it.
Yeah.
Like, we were undefeated. And I was like, I'll never let that happen again. I'll never let anything be about me ever again. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like how all of these very important, crucial moments in your life, you always getting like really good lessons about how to proceed. It's a sign of discernment and maturity. So move well. So then, after high school, you also played football.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll move on to the next question.
Yeah. So now this is where kind of like my desire to help out the youth came from. Where when I went to college, I'm the first one to even in my family to both my parents actually had dropped out of high school. So I'm out of high school. I'm trying to go to college, and this is all new to me. And you all know that we have counselors, but we don't have mentors. We don't have guidance. We have information that we don't know what to do with it. Like, yeah, I'll get you all the information you need, but I don't know what I'm asking for. I don't know, I don't have that step by step, because I really did need somebody to hold my hand at that point, because I don't know where I'm going.
Right.
Now I'm in uncharted territory here. So I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. And at the time, I'm being recruited by a lot of D2 schools. One mainly was Bloomsburg, but I didn't want to go D2. I was like, I'm a starting quarterback and really good team, and I know Miami isn't a possibility, but I don't want to like cut my standards too low.
Yeah.
But that's my mentality. Like if I had somebody that was guiding me, they're like, yo, like you trust me, dude. Like D2 isn't what you think it is. Go to some of these schools. Go to the visits. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Right.
I didn't even go on the visits.
Yeah, Villanova, I know, has a really good football D2 program. And
Actually, at the time, they were 1AA.
Oh, okay.
So they were D. In fact, actually, I think they still are. They're 1AA. So I was looking higher than D2.
Yeah. Okay.
And the only one that I could get into was Delaware State.
Okay.
So I ended up going there, which in all honesty, had I went through the process of visiting schools and actually giving these people my time, there's no way I wouldn't have took Bloomsburg University.
Okay, got it.
Because when a while ago, my first time actually visiting Bloomsburg was when we were visiting my wife's friend who went to Bloomsburg. So we went to the campus. She lived near the campus, and I went like, you know what? Can we see the campus?
Yeah.
The first thing I saw was the stadium, and I'm like, what did I give up? Like, what did I like? If I had just saw the stadium, I would have been like, sign me up. And then I got to see their weight room. I got to see all this other stuff. I was like, there's no way I wouldn't have picked Bloomsburg.
Bloomsburg has a good D2 football program.
Yeah, and they had a really good one at that time. So I was like, oh, if somebody had just told me. Somebody just like Chris, take that opportunity. Chris, you're gonna go to that.
Right.
You're gonna go on that visit. There's no way I wouldn't have picked Bloomsburg.
Right.
But I ended up not even really staying at. And the thing is that I had to pay. Like I would have got a scholarship, but I had to pay because
you wanted the higher
right.
ranked
And
league.
even that, I'm thinking, yeah, I'll pay for the first year, but let me on the team. I'll get a scholarship.
Got it. Yeah.
That's how my mentality was. Like you put me on the team, I'm going to make the starting position. Like, so I got there and it did not work out. I actually had one of the worst times ever as a freshman at Del State, and that was terrible. And then I ended up having to come home and having to help out the family financially. So I went back to work, but I still wanted to play.
Yeah.
I still wanted to play college, and I started looking around again with my dad. And LaSalle University, I actually ended up talking to a coach there, and he said the same thing that my high school coach told me. Like, if you get in, I'll give you a shot. Mm-hmm. And then once I heard that, it reminded me about my coach. I'm like, I'm going there. I don't need to look anywhere else.
Right.
I'm going there. And I was able to get in. I was able to play, but there was a lot of time wasted. Mm-hmm. A lot of time wasted. And a lot of time that I didn't know was ticking against me.
Yeah.
So I actually lost a lot of eligibility time because of the time it took for me to go from Dell State to, I was actually out another year and a half because I had to go back to community college, get some more credits to be able to transfer, because Delaware State and LaSalle University, so
Yeah.
it wasn't, so
A lot of the credits don't transfer. I transferred too
Yeah.
from SUNY Oswego to Temple, and not all my
so I
credits.
had to make up for that, and ended up playing at LaSalle. My senior year was actually almost it was cut short, but it was almost like done completely because I didn't know that my eligibility was up. I had made the starting position, named the starting corner, and I get a letter, or I actually get sent to their I guess counselor's office, and he's like, you can't play next year.
Oh wow.
I was like, excuse me? I was like, well, why not? And they're like, yeah, you actually ran out of eligibility. I was like, that's impossible. I was like, I've only been in school for 4 years. They're like, no, you've technically been in school for 5 years. Right. And I was like, I was like, how does this happen? Like, what do I need to do? They was like, so they gave me a list of things to do to get back my eligibility. So I did everything. I spent that whole summer trying to get my dad, trying to pull up information from years ago, and and all this other stuff. And so we end up submitting everything, and then it was a waiting game because I had submitted everything before the season started, but the NCAA didn't make a ruling until the 4th week of the season.
Okay.
So I was able to practice, couldn't play. That was excruciating because I was supposed to be the starting corner. So I ended up getting my eligibility back. I ended up playing. I was kind of in and out. As it wasn't like the full-fledged starter, but I was kind of in and out. Still got the experience, but my coach was impressed about, like, you didn't have to come.
Right.
You were able to, but you didn't have to come to practice. I came to every practice. I came to every film session. I came to every weightlifting session.
For the love of the game.
For the love of the game. I did everything as if I was the starter.
Right.
And he was impressed. He was like, I want you to study under me. I want you to be a student assistant. But like, as my senior year was approaching and my graduation was coming up, my first thing was, the first thing I thought was, that's like, I need a paid position. Like, I need to make money. And as it's basically like an intern. And technically it was like the dream position for me because to learn under a coach, a college coach, I was like, oh, this is what I want. So again, if I had that kind of mentorship, they're like, hey, Chris, this is how you can do this. This is how you can make this happen. You can still do this here and then still work here. In my mind, full-time was full-time.
Yeah.
And I went out and I was like, and in my mind, trying to figure things out on my own, I end up, getting a full-time position, getting a management position. And in my head, I'm like, let me get the money. Let me figure out my schedule and I could come back. I could come back to him. And then they end up cutting the program and he ends up leaving to like Idaho.
Right.
I was again, like I went back into like another state of depression and I was like, oh, there goes my opportunity.
Have you tried to reach out to him?
Actually,
not to get a job, but just, hey, what's going on? Or
I followed him on Facebook because for a while there wasn't social media like that. So when social media was strong, he was a big name now. He's actually the offensive coordinator at Wisconsin University, and he's one of the top offensive coordinators in the country.
Yeah.
So he has a couple quarterbacks that he coached that are in the NFL. So I'm like it would, like I don't think it would be hard for me to reach out to him again. But I think if the coaching opportunity ever came up and I know it was coming, I would definitely make that, try to make that connection again. Because I remember, I graduated in 2005. I remember everything about his offense.
Yeah.
Everything about his offense. And I remember everything about the defense. So, that's where I get my motivation to help out kids. Because I know so many of us in Philly, or many of our youth in Philly, are going through the same exact thing. And it's my experience isn't unique. There's so many of them going through that. Even when I'm around the kids at Kensington, I can see it as I'm talking to them, and they can feel it too.
Right.
they can feel that.
And I feel the passion and the sort of need and want to try to give the younger generation what they need to be able to maximize and reach their potential.
Exactly. That's all they need. All they need is somebody, to hold their hand a certain amount of way, and then let go, but let them know I'm still behind you.
Exactly.
I'm gonna let my hand go. Now I've taught you enough that you should be able to do this, and this. Now, in the event that you're kind of unsure, I'm right here.
Right.
In the event something goes wrong, I'm right here. In the event you just need some, discipleship, some mentorship,
right.
I'm right here. And that's what I desire for the youth, especially in Philly.
Right. Yeah, like we're missing as young men those sort of rituals to transition us from childhood into manhood, right? We need someone to give us a model and to, like you said, guide us into that, like the liminal moments in the lives of young men, and we're missing that a lot.
Yeah.
So it's great that you're thinking of that and trying to give back to the young men, especially here in Philadelphia.
And what I notice is that the reason why they fail, it isn't for lack of trying. It's a culture shock to them.
Yeah.
When it's time to go from being a boy to a man, if you're not ready for it, it's such a culture shock. They have no idea what to do. So you're in panic mode or you're in survival mode,
right.
And you just do the thing that's available to you. Or you do the thing
right.
that is easiest, which in the streets, we all know what that is, and, just to, get them ready for that culture shock, because a lot of these kids have talent. Even though the majority of recruiting comes from down south, Midwest, and West Coast, in Philly, it's not for lack of talent.
Right.
Philly has an immense amount of talent, but I think we're missing that, because a lot of these kids get the talent, they go off to these universities and don't realize what's going to be demanded of them.
Right.
Not realizing you got 5-6 a.m. lift to go get ready. You got class 8 to whenever. After class, you got practice. After practice, you got study hall. After study hall, you got to do your projects. So you're from 5-6 o'clock in the morning till 10, 11, sometimes 12 o'clock at night. You got a responsibility here. There's a demand on you from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, and they're not ready for that because they think that they just show up,
and you might not also be the head honcho anymore. Might not be the most talented player on the team. Now you're competing. You might even lose your chance at being a starter because you have 2-3 other guys who are just as talented. Now it's a matter of how do you differentiate, right? Like, it's hard work, it's the discipline, it's the studying, etc.
And that's it. It's not your talent. It's what you put in. It's the work you put in. That's what coaches look for. These coaches have a livelihood that they're trying to obtain. So it's they don't have a secondary a secondary thing that they fall back on. This is their profession. So they're banking on you to do what you got to do so that way they can maintain their livelihood. So they're not gonna keep you around if you're messing around, if you're missing practices, not really putting it all in the weight room and your grades are slipping.
Yeah.
The minute that starts happening, they're like, we may give you a chance or so, but time really is money with them. Right. So it's like, especially with scholarships is not like an imaginary thing. That's actual money that's being put on you. And the more money they put on you, the more demand that they're putting on you.
Exactly.
And they need to know that that's going to happen in their professional life too.
Exactly.
Because they think that, oh man, once I make it good and I make a solid living, I'll make a certain amount of money, I'll be good. Like, you don't understand that there's people ahead of you that are putting that money towards you, and there's an expectation on you. And the more money they give you, and I faced that when I was a manager. And I'm coming up and people want a higher position because they're good at the thing that they do. But I'm like, you don't understand, when this position comes, you're not the same person. Right. I don't think of you as the same person. Like, there is going to be more on you. And they don't understand why sometimes they don't get the position because, well, one, you haven't demonstrated that, one, you're mature enough to handle the position. And two, some people are afraid to do the job before they get the job.
Okay.
So I told them, I was like, they're like, oh, why do I have to do this job? Why do I have to do this thing? I'm not being paid for that. I was like, no, well, it is good to sometimes go above and beyond because you want to show the guy that you can do it.
Yeah, you're signaling that you're capable and you're willing to.
And
do
you're
a little
willing, so.
Transitioning just a bit. What are your political views?
Honestly, my political views kind of coincide with my beliefs. So that's how I look at when I'm voting, when I'm looking up certain people and like they're seeing what they believe
Right.
or like what they're trying to do. If it doesn't in line with anything that what my beliefs as a
Right.
Christian
Okay.
kind of lines up with, I don't vote for that person.
Okay.
I don't. So it's not like my political is either Republican or Democrat or it's whatever this or that. Like it doesn't matter to me whether he's the person or he or she is a Republican or Democrat. If anything that they believe in goes against what my Christian beliefs is,
Okay.
they don't get my vote.
Okay.
So, and even like how I view things, politically, when things start to happen, my first thought is, like biblically, what is this about? Like,
Okay.
what is this trying to say, or what are you going alongside it, or are you going against it?
Okay.
If you're going against it, I can't vote that way.
Okay.
If you're going with it, then maybe I can come alongside because I really don't look at they kind of force you to like pick a side.
Yeah. Exactly.
but you still can vote either way. Like you can literally put yourself in as a Republican, but you can vote for a
Exactly,
Democrat. So it really doesn't matter what side that you
Register,
have to
yeah.
register as. So
So it sounds like your political views are in service of the greater religious values that you have. You want to talk a little bit about your just religious beliefs and values?
Yeah. Well, I would say I fully became a Christian when around when I was like about 30
Okay.
when I met Crystal, and she was already going to a church at the time. Now, mind you, I went to Catholic school. I went to so it wasn't like it wasn't like I grew up an atheist. Like I believed in God. I just didn't really know how to, like I believed, but I didn't follow.
Yeah.
So I knew, I never not believed there was a God, but I just lived my life, and it was like, all of you guys are liars, and I guess I'll figure it out at some point. And I remember we met. She was going to a church, which simultaneously a friend of mine that played on Mass Bomb's team, he was going to the church, and a cousin of mine was going to the church.
Okay.
But I didn't know they all went to the same church. And I would drop her. There was times where I would drop her off, or she would tell me that she's going to church, and I would drop her off and kind of look and I'm kind of interested, but it's probably just another, whatever. So I just kept it going. And my cousin would tell me about the church, and I'm like, oh, it sounds interesting, but my friend would tell me about the church. Maybe one day. So one time, I guess they were getting a new building, and she was performing. She was on the dance squad. And she was performing, so I'm like, I want to see, this. I'll go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking I'm gonna go watch the performance and stick around for the service and then bounce. So I go in there, and from the very beginning, it wasn't like what I thought I was going to get.
Okay.
I went in there, and I remember that every single man in the house greeted me, every single one of them. And as they greeted me, we were talking, and then there were some guys that I grew up with that were in the church. That I know these guys.
Yeah.
These guys were like the hoodest of the. And I'm like, you go here, and even the way they talk, they didn't talk the way I remember them talking. Yeah. And then of course my friend, he's there. He actually was a deacon at the time. He was there. My cousin was there. He was doing that. I'm like, wow, everybody that I like, I haven't even heard a word yet. I haven't even heard the sermon yet. And I already can tell, this guy is not...
The changes.
Right. He's not the guy who I remember. Mm-hmm. So I sat there, I was like, man, this is nothing like how I thought church would be. And then I heard the sermon. Don't even remember what the sermon was about, but I remember sitting there, and something that he said started man, I started sweating. Really, my heart was pounding. I was like, man, what is this? And I felt like there was something he said, and I felt like crying. And I was like, man, I was like, what is this? I was
Yeah.
like, what is going on? So I remember leaving, and it stuck with me. Like, I remember everything he said, and then, of course, my friend kept reaching out. My cousin kept reaching out. They're like, yo, you gotta come back. So I was like, I do. I'll come back, you know, because whatever that was, I don't think it was like by accident, and I want to know what that was first off. So I went back a couple times, and every single time I went there, it was something that he said that just sparked something that was like an emotion or something, or like a memory, or like something that was hidden that came up, and I was like, oh my God. And it was like, you know, there's a way to deal with this. There's a way to rectify this, you know. There's a way to get past your past, you know. So there was an altar call.
I like that.
Right.
To get past your past.
Right.
I like that.
So there was an altar call, and I was just like, and he was just like, you know, if you want to come, you know, and basically accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. You know, they had an altar call with it, and I was like, I gotta do this. I was like, there's no way. Every single time I come here, I feel like this. I never felt like this at a church before. So I went up, and I'm there. I'm closing my eyes, and I don't know. They were like, eyes, head bowed, eyes closed, and I'm there, and I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm fighting tears because you know us, like, we don't like to cry, especially in public. So
Yeah, exactly.
I'm fighting tears, man. I'm holding it in. I'm getting a headache because I'm trying to hold my tears in so bad. And I remember feeling a hand on my shoulder, and he was like, one of those, and I already knew it was my friend John. I already knew it. I knew it was him. And he's like, and he talked to me. He's like, bro, you ready? I was like, yeah, I'm ready. And the minute I said I'm ready, it all came out. And, we did our thing, and, I accepted him for that point. And then I know from that point on, things were just so different. Things were just so different. Like it wasn't easy, but I always had an answer. Like, whereas before, things weren't easy, and I had to find it. I had to find the answer. I had to create an answer. I had to, hope that this mistake didn't destroy me this time. And, it was just always. And another thing that I desired was mentorship, right? I've spoken about that from the time I was grade school, high school, college. I always desired mentorship, which is the highest form of mentorship is discipleship.
Yep.
So I was getting it there, and I was like, this is what I want. This is what I've always wanted. I always wanted to somebody who's been there and done that to show me how to get to where you're going. Right. And I allowed men in the house to speak to me, to correct me, and to answer my questions, and not be too prideful or too secretive. So that really shaped, and still to this day I'm real big with that.
Okay.
With discipleship.
What's the name of your church?
In the Light Ministries. It's at the time we were at Huntington Park, right across the street from Edison.
Okay.
But right now we're at 4th and Lehigh. We're using the school right now, which we're actually going to be in a building soon, right there on Oxford, where the Regal. Oh, I think it was called the Regal Ballroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be our church now.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. I used to live with Paula. Maybe a block away.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because remember there was a McDonald's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they shut down the McDonald's. I think it's a
Mexican restaurant.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to live a block away.
Okay. Yeah. The church is gonna be right across the street.
Okay. Yeah.
From there.
So, anything that you do for self-improvement?
Oh, a lot. Like I still train.
Okay.
I still train. Like if I'm trying to make it. I actually had a huge workout before I came here. Like I'll be 43 this summer, and I still train as if I'm back in college.
Okay.
I still like to train people. So as far as like training, that is a form of me, maintaining my body, staying healthy. It actually helps you think better. I'm into like devotionals and reading certain things because I'm always finding ways to be a better husband, better father, better businessman, everything. I'm always in the search of being better at whatever.
Right.
So I do stuff like that, you
So
know.
yeah, so self improvement. I It sounds like you take a holistic approach. So it's not just improving physically and staying fit and exercising, but also spiritually,
Oh yeah.
and combining all of those things together to be a better man and a better
Oh
husband, better
yeah.
father.
Oh yeah. And especially when with reading the Bible, because people think that reading the Bible is actually like a huge part of being a Christian. Like it's hard to be a Christian and not read the Bible, and just expect somebody else to give it
Right,
to
I
you.
agree with that.
Like a lot of people, expect that for the pastor or for whoever their spiritual leader is to give them
Yeah,
the information. Like, no, you're supposed to sit down because it does speak to you. There's things that I'm doing now where you know what, I never read the Bible. Like, I mean, you're not supposed to read it like an actual book, but I never read like every book in the Bible.
right.
you know and I want to do that. I found a devotional that actually it picks apart each book, and every day you read a certain section of each book, some from the old and some from Old Testament and the New Testament. And as you're reading it, you get to see why things happened in the New Testament because of something that happened in the Old Testament, and why this is important and why this is not important, and why this is a law and why this is not a law, and stuff like that. So I'm like, man, like I've like I said, like I'm be 43 this summer. I was saved when I was 30, so that's almost 13 years, and I'm just now, reading, realizing certain things about the Bible that that are new to me almost. So
Any big regrets in your life so far?
there was some. There was one that I actually there was obviously I mentioned the one about the not going to Bloomsburg,
Yeah.
but there was also an opportunity for me to in that gap that I was spoke about that I wasn't but I was going from Delaware State to LaSalle.
Yeah.
I actually had an opportunity to go to the military,
Okay.
and I was gonna go. Like I was gonna go because what was presented to me was like, we could pay for your school. We could pay for your school, and I always had a fascination with the Navy SEALs and the Army Rangers, like the top of the top,
Right.
And I was like, if I do this, I think I might want to try to do that. I think I might want to go that route, and I was like, and I could get my school paid because what I also found out later, which if I had made that decision, actually would have saved me my time.
Okay.
Because when you're in the military, that counts as a hold against your eligibility.
Okay.
So I could be in the military for like 3 to 5 years, and that doesn't count against me.
Right.
So had I made that decision, I wouldn't have lost my time.
Yeah.
But then what happened was 9/11.
Oh.
And I was making a decision between the Army and the Marines.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then 9/11 happened, and I was like, oh man, I really had the spark. Like I really like, maybe I should do this.
Yeah.
My whole intent was to join the military, and I wanted to be in the fight. A lot of people join the military and think that they're like, which is weird. Like you're in the military, like if there's a war, you're going. Like people are like, oh man, maybe I could do the military and figure out a way that I can still stay home and still do this. They're like, no, you're
Right,
going.
right. You're in the military to become a killing machine and a warrior.
To go, and so my intent was to go, and I remember being talked out of it by a couple friends and a couple family members because they knew how I was. They knew that I wasn't going to play. They knew I was going to take this to heart and go, and this is. And you remember how turbulent that time was. They were like, yo, this is probably gonna be the worst war that we ever seen. Yeah. I don't know, man. Like you go, you might not come back. So I ended up not doing it because at that time, right after that, this when I was about to make the decision, that's when the coach from LaSalle was like, hey, if you make it on here, I'll give you a shot. So I was like, all right, maybe I don't need the military to have schooling, and even if I do go, there's no guarantee I'm coming back.
That's a good point.
So I ended up not doing that. But I think if I had did that, it would have made things. If I made it, it would have made things a lot easier as far as like my decision making, as far as like my finances and coming out of college and finding a career and stuff like that. Because a couple of the guys that I know that did do it,
Yeah.
they're successful.
Yeah.
Like they're really successful. They're actually, I was like, man, if I and I was making the decision before they were.
Yeah.
So like I could have been, first in line with that, but that was one of them. And because it did shit up until I hit 30, and I kind of, like I said, like I met Crystal and got into church. My decision making was terrible.
Okay.
My decision making was terrible. There was a point where that maturity level that I had started to fade.
Okay.
And I didn't think it was depression at the time, but there was a deep level of depression because of things that were kind of taken from me and didn't kind of come into fruition that I thought at that point in my life I would have. So my decision making was poor.
Yeah, that seems to be a consistent story for a lot of men in their 20s, the decision making, which I mean is part of just being young, but like you had also established, it's also a lack of mentorship and guidance and probably stubbornness too from our parts.
Oh yeah. Which I feel the military would have got rid of all that.
Right, exactly, because that's what it's all about, right? Like
Right.
discipline and sort of the destruction of the ego to build you up to become part of something greater.
Right.
And that's part of it. The individualism can run rampant and cause a lot of issues when you're at that age.
Oh yeah.
And then to conclude the what's lacking question, what's your favorite movie, album, and book of all time?
All right, so movie's hard because in all honesty, my my degree is in mass communications and is film and audio track.
Okay.
So like even everything we're doing here, that's what I went. I have a whole degree in this stuff. Never really used it.
I hope you're not judging my podcasting setup.
No. Actually, it's a really good setup. And it's weird because and now one thing that I am glad that I did was I took business and business management courses alongside of that. Mm-hmm. So that's how kind of like how I was still able to thrive and succeed in what I did get into. And become management and all the other stuff, even though I didn't get into what I really wanted to, which was movies and making movies and writing. But because of that, like, it's hard because I don't have one favorite movie, but like in each genre I do.
Okay.
So like if I want to laugh, like if I have a comedy, my favorite one's Half Baked. I love, Dave Chappelle is my favorite comedian.
Who killed Killer B?
Oh man, like I remember making skits where I put myself in as Dave Chappelle.
Okay.
Like he had to learn editing and all that other stuff. So I did that. Like favorite comedy is definitely Half Baked. I would say favorite action or adventure type thing is 300.
Okay.
300. Oh,
this
man.
is Sparta.
Oh man, like I tell you, like even when I was still playing. Or like even when I got to competing and fighting for a little bit, I would watch that movie. Then that movie does something to me.
Yeah, motivation.
Yeah, big time. And like if I want to have the feels and have like a romantic movie or something to watch with Crystal, my favorite one would be The Notebook.
Oh wow. Clinton Sparks was his name.
I forgot his name.
Nicholas Sparks. Yeah.
Yeah, and that one was masterfully written.
I've never watched that movie.
Watch it with watch it with Paula because it's a good movie, man. Like I'm talking about from beginning to end, it's just very well written.
Yeah, what's his name? Ryan Gosling. That was the movie that put him on the map, right?
Yeah. So that one, I would say favorite album. I'm a huge Wu-Tang Clan fan. Huge, like
Wu-Tang ain't nothing to play with.
Yo, I know I can recite every album from 36 Chambers to the double album, like all of that. So it's hard because like they're like I love every single album, but my favorite it's a toss up between Only Built for Cuban Link or Iron Man.
Ooh,
because those two, they're two of my favorite. Raekwon and Ghost was my favorite. The two, and they almost kind of lumped together, like because they were always on each other's album, you know. And so it was like,
you know what? That's interesting that you mentioned that because I think Iron Man is super underrated, and I love it. But only built for Cuban links. It's like
that was the kind.
You know what I'm saying? Like
that one.
It's
that
hard
one,
not to pick it.
Yeah. So I'll say if there's 1A and 1B, only built for Cuban link is 1A. Like that one was the all time classic. And I had the purple tape.
Yeah, whoa.
When the purple tape first came, I actually had the purple tape. So that was it for me.
Salute, yeah. You know, the purple tape. That's like a hip hop holy grail.
Yeah, big time. And I would say favorite book. You know, it might be cliche, but it really is. It has been the Bible because it's the only book that I know that I actually sit down and read.
Exactly.
There are other books that I've heard and I've actually tried to read, but like it really is I would say it really is the Bible because it has a lot of everything in it.
Yeah.
Like anything you can think of that you're going through, you can find it in the Bible. You know, so you know, I would stick to that. That's probably like my favorite.
All right, Chris, this was a great episode. And look forward to continuing to build this friendship and talking to you. This brings us to the end of the What's Lacking podcast. Thank you for listening. Take care.